screen is way too. No, still.
Okay, we're live. It says we're live. Hello, everybody. 5 viewers already. Okay, they must be waiting for us. We're just setting up our Facebook feed.
I have to pull in the screen a little bit.
Live.
We're already going live? Not yet.
We are already live on YouTube. Okay. Okay. What's it called? Unorthodox?
Facebook and YouTube?
Yeah. What's it called? Unorthodox?
Yeah. As depicted on the screen, no?
Good. 1 minute to go live. Okay, I'm going live right now. Ready? Okay.
Just pull the screen in a little bit.
Wait, what does it mean in?
Up a little.
Okay.
I feel like it's too.
Marty's with us. Nice to see you, Marty. Okay. 1 minute. That's here.
Pick this up a little bit. Let me see if that's better. Is that
My
better?
head's chopped off, huh?
Oh,
Did you see my
whoops.
head's chopped off? Seriously.
No, we don't want to
Okay.
get chopped up.
Okay. Phew. My pen? I don't have a pen. Where's my pen? You have a pen?
Here, I brought it.
Okay. We're waiting for our signal. We're starting on the radio here. We are in the studio. Opa! I moved.
Uh-oh.
You're listening to the Sunday Shrews with the Rabbi and the CEO, brought to you by Morse Life Health System, the gold standard in senior living.
Now, back to your hosts, Rabbi David Vigler and CEO Mitch Zachary.
Separating the facts from the fiction and the Baba Mises from the bottom line. You're listening to the Sunday Schmooze with the Rabbi and the Rebbitzin. Chana Vigler is the Rebbitzin of Chabad of Palm Beach Gardens. I am Rabbi David Vigler, her husband, and co-founder and director of the Chabad of Palm Beach Gardens. Together, we run the Chabad of Palm Beach Gardens. We are part of the world's only organization which has 50% women in leadership. Is that right?
50% CEO.
No Chabad house has only male leadership. It's always men and women together. It's husband, wife, and wife teams. And we are proud to be the founders and spiritual leaders of the Chabad of Palm Beach Gardens. We're delighted to be here today as we take on a very hot topic, very controversial, the Netflix film series, 4-part series called Unorthodox. Very controversial title there.
Yeah, you know, I love our schmooze tagline of separating facts from fiction, because I often like to think of ourselves, and years ago when we first started Chabad of Palm Beach Gardens, I would often describe ourselves as mythbusters, because more than anything else, I feel like one of our biggest jobs out there is really to dispel so much misinformation that there is out there. And no greater example than Unorthodox, which was really, for a lot of people, I think their first glimpse into Hasidic life and their first introduction really to people living this way at all. And there is so much to be said about this mini-series. I hope that we're going to be able to get through everything. We are
Lots of
also
questions
we have so many questions to go through, which we're super excited to do, as well as, of course, we are happy to take your questions. So if there's anything that we are not addressing that you would like addressed, please feel free to go ahead and submit them.
So just to explain the format here, are you in the middle?
No, go ahead.
Just to explain the format, we are broadcasting on the radio on the Sunday Schmooze radio show, which is broadcast on 2 FM stations. That's 95.9 FM and 106.9 FM. Also on the AM station, which is 1290 AM. But we are also on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. And for our Facebook and YouTube Live viewers, we encourage you to participate by asking your questions, posting your comments to the YouTube and Facebook feeds so that we can engage with you on a live way. I think what's really interesting about Unorthodox is that so many of us tend to get most of our information from the big screen. As much as we won't want to admit it, we do get a lot of our education from Hollywood. You know, somebody, I was telling somebody about the story of the Exodus, the biblical story of the Exodus. And he looks at me funny and he says, you know, Rabbi, that's not the way that, Charlton Heston did it in the movie. I thought he was kidding. The guy was serious. So what we need to do is to truly separate the facts from the fiction and the Baba Mises from the bottom line about the myths and misconceptions of observant Jewish life as depicted on the big screen, hearing it here from the Rabbi and Rebbitzin. It's Rebbitzin Chana Vigler. I'm Rabbi David Vigler, and we want to thank all the people that have sent us questions in advance of this show because we knew it was going to be a hot topic. Lots of questions. We hope to be able to get through them. Can I start?
Yes. Well, before we actually get into it, the first thing that I do want to make one little small disclaimer is that, as you know, we are Chabad. We are from the Chabad community. So there are definitely similarities in our lifestyles, but there's so much that is not alike. Having said that, the Satmar community is a beautiful community that I think we have a lot to learn from. And I think that there is a lot to unpack from this mini-series that many of us saw. So what we would like to do today, our goal of today is really to separate, to take out the elements of, and helping you to distinguish what is authentic, what did you see that is really that way, and what did you see that is really not. So with that, let's get started.
I just want to say one quick introduction, because you made such a great point there, Hannah. And that is that Judaism is not a monolith. There are many, many, many kinds of Jewish people. So you can't just talk about the us versus the them, right? There's many different kinds of, there's Ashkenazi and there's Sephardi, there's Hasidic and there's Haredi, and there's this kind of yarmulke and there's that kind of yarmulke. There's very, very, very many different kinds of Jews. What we all have in common is that we share the same God, one God. We have one Torah, and we have the same 613 mitzvahs, the same commandments, right? How we choose to observe them is sometimes different. You know, for example, a very obvious example is in the length of the side locks, the payas, right? So you'll notice that my side locks are pretty small, nothing major going on over here, but I always tell my barber, make sure not to touch anything below the line of the glasses, because that's a biblical commandment that your cheekbones should be covered, right? Just in front of the ear, right? So how you manifest that depends on your culture and your custom and your traditions. We're not here to be the defense attorneys of the Satmar community, but we are looking to make sure that Judaism is portrayed in the proper light and not misinterpreted as we feel was certainly done on the big screen in the documentary of Unorthodox, right?
Yes.
So we've got a whole bunch of questions that we've already received, and we'd like to share them with you. I think Hannah's got a lot to say here, so I'm going to try to sneak in a few words edgewise. I'm going to try. I don't like interrupting my wife because I have tremendous respect for you. But I'm going to start off. I figured if I could ask the questions, at least I get a few words in, right? Because she's very passionate about this topic. So let's go for this. First question came in here from Stacy. I think Stacy's watching with us. She says, I watched the show on Netflix and I was very disappointed in how the Orthodox Jewish community was portrayed. I definitely felt sorry for Esther. I can't believe that this is how it is for all the women. Was there something different about her particular community as compared to others?
So a very, very important point that I'd like to make as well is that this movie is based on the story of one woman. And yes, she may have had her struggle. It was very, very real. And many of us have very, very real struggles that we need to sort through in our lives. This poor young woman grew up without a mother. Her father was a drunk or mentally unstable. And I'm talking about the real, forget even the movie right now, just the movie, the woman that this movie is based on.
Deborah.
Yes. She grew up very differently to probably, I would say 99.9% of her peers in this community. Very unusual to be growing up this way, raised by her
The
grandparents.
lesbian mother?
Her mother turned out to be lesbian, left. She didn't have any contact with her mother for many, many
She
years.
was thrown out of the wedding.
Well, we'll get to that soon. But my point is that she definitely dealt with a lot. And she did what she did, and I have absolutely no judgment towards her for having needed to leave and done what she did. And if that's what she felt she needed for her healing, then that's what she needed. And that's okay. And many of us we all need to do what is necessary for our own healing process. And for a lot of us, that means coming publicly with our story and telling our story as we know it. However, a very, very important distinction that must be made is that while, yes, this is one woman's story of healing, the Hasidic community is the backdrop to her story, not the reason for her story. It is simply the setting where it took place. As it could in any community, in any place, you will find people who struggle, who go through difficult circumstances. It happens. It happens. And they need to go through a healing process. And some of them are fascinating stories. And this is no different to that. She definitely had a challenging upbringing and challenging situation. But the very important thing that I really want to make clear is that the Hasidic community in this story was the backdrop. It's not the way that they promoted this movie. They promoted it as a glimpse into the Hasidic world, which it maybe was in a very, very small way. But that's not what this movie was about. It wasn't about being a glimpse into the Hasidic way of life. It was really much more about one woman's story. Because if it were to be, or if it were to have been a glimpse into the Hasidic way of life, you would have seen the beauty, you would have seen the joy, you would have seen the warmth, you would have seen the love, none of which was depicted in this miniseries very clearly. Every single one of the members of the Hasidic community in this miniseries was like brainless. I don't even want to call them person because they weren't even people. They were
like wooden caricatures.
Yeah, literally. That were just kind of, walking. Even the way, like he for those that have seen this.
Did the Rebbe give you permission?
I was just going to say that. Even the way he started talking to Siri, like, find me my what? Like, he's so
never heard of the
dumb.
internet before.
Like, you're serious? Like, maybe it's true that they don't carry phones with internet. This is true because just for the safety of where you can wander on the internet, and we're all aware of the dangers of the internet. Come on.
You remember the scene where she went to buy some makeup? I know you were fired up over there.
Yeah, I mean, literally. I do not think that there is. I do not know of any Hasidic woman that doesn't own a stitch of makeup.
In the movie, it was like she had never tried makeup on before. She didn't even know what it was.
That's just ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. So, just in answer to this question, Stacey, yes, it was the Satmar community that they are depicting in Williamsburg, which again, as I said, is very different to our Chabad lifestyle. But at the same time, I can tell you that most of the people growing up in these neighborhoods feel nothing like any of those people that you saw on the screen. And there's a lot more love and beauty and warmth in their homes. And yes, a lot more seichel, a lot more thinking, a lot more questioning, a lot more conversation than what you saw.
So if I could just interject a quick few points over here by saying thank you, Hannah, for those beautiful points. In the movie, there wasn't a single positive character that I picked on in the Hasidic community. the mother-in-law, the
Nobody had a sympathetic personality.
nobody
right?
was a
Like you
mensch. There wasn't a single mensch. But when you looked at the friends in Berlin,
right. All of a sudden,
each one of them, one was nicer and kinder than the next one. There was only one rotten apple in Berlin. Do you remember who that was?
you know who that was?
The Israeli.
The Israeli. Exactly.
She was the one that wasn't so nice. She
Yes.
she was pretty brutal and
Yes.
nasty to Esti. But the thing, and you have to realize that is so far removed from reality. The Satmar community, which by the way, all these Hasidic communities are named for their towns of origin. Satmar began in Hungary in a place called Saint Mary.
It's called Satamari.
Satamari. It's named for Saint
Satamari.
Mary, and it's interesting that's called Satmar. Vishnitz, Belz, all the other Hasidic groups are named for their towns of location of origin. Whereas Chabad is very, very different. Chabad means logic. It's not necessarily an ethnic group as much as it is a philosophy, a rational approach to faith, which is why Chabad is very, very different. I know you have a lot more to say.
I don't want to get on a tangent on all this.
But I do want to say one
origins,
thing. I don't
but
want to say that Deborah, I don't know what her last name is. In the
Feldman.
interview, Deborah
Yeah.
Feldman, in the People magazine interview, she did say that there was something which she missed tremendously from the Satmar community, and that was the profound sense of values. There was zero values that I felt were portrayed in the movie. Nothing positive that she was receiving from
Yeah,
from
she
her
didn't
community.
depict that at all in the show.
Are you ready for the next question?
So,
Keep it moving, hon. You ready?
okay, so was there something different about her particular community as compared to others? Definitely, every community is different. Absolutely.
Question coming in from. Oh, you done?
Yeah, go ahead.
Question coming in from Barbara. She wants to know about the intrusiveness of the son's relationship with his mother, and to the inappropriateness of the mother-in-law's involvement in their marriage and the conception that put me over the edge. So Barbara wants to know: is this how mothers-in-law behave? I mean, do they know the intimate details of the bedroom life of their sons? I mean.
Yeah, so that put me over the edge too, Babs. So I tell you, I have not heard of a single mother-in-law that has ever meddled like that.
I'm sure there are some. There's got to be some.
I'm sure there are. I don't know of any. I know that it's something, especially in our community, anything to that nature is very private and sacred and holy and is not discussed with anybody. So the fact that his mother, and then the way he was like closer with his mother than his wife and telling her more, that really troubled me. That is not the way Jewish marriage works, which really just leads me into
by the way,
next
under the
question.
chuppah, you turn around, the bride walks around the groom 7 times under the chuppah, as if to build a wall around the groom. This is us, just the two of us. 1 + 1 = 1. That is intimacy. But when you start to involve many, many other people from all around, that's not the Torah way. You're not supposed to have other people involved in your bedroom life and your intimate life. It's supposed to be the husband and wife respecting each other. The Talmud says that a man has to honor his wife as much as he honors himself, and he has to respect her more than he respects himself. In this film, this guy was respecting his mother more than he was respecting his wife, and certainly not a reflection of
I just want to answer Gail's question here. She says, why didn't the community show up for her? They knew she grew up without a mom and her father was an alcoholic. So if the community is so warm and tight, why didn't they help her in terms of getting her therapy or just extra love and support? Honestly, Gail, I would be shocked that they didn't. I do not know her personal story. I don't know. So I can't speak for what happened. I could speak for what I know in our community, that definitely the community would rally around her and give her as much help as she could. We all go through our own journeys. I don't know exactly what happened, but
Look,
she
it's not
definitely
for
had.
everybody.
She definitely had a very tight-knit family. She had her grandparents and her aunts and uncles that were always there for her. I don't think she was alone. Definitely. I mean, I only know what I saw in the movie, and I only know what I saw from what I've read about her and the interviews she's given. But I have no reason to think that they didn't band together for her. For some people, it's not enough. For some people, she had some serious struggles, and for some people, therapy is not enough. For some people, for some people, like you said, it's not for them, and leaving the community is what they needed. I don't know. I'm not here to judge anybody's anybody's decisions, and for sure not here to judge the community because I don't know.
But wasn't the
Yeah.
fact that they chased after her in Berlin a sign that they cared for her and they wanted to bring her back home? I mean, it's not like they forgot about her in
Well,
some sort of apathetic.
in the movie, they made it seem that the only reason why they were after her
For the child.
was because she was pregnant.
like they couldn't care about her for one bit. Right?
And that's really very heartbreaking to see that. And at no point did they say to her, "We want you to come back because we're worried about you."
And how are you feeling?
You're in this big country by yourself. You don't know anybody. You're all alone, and none of that. It was like they were only there because of the baby. And I thought that was very unfair because even if she wasn't pregnant, they still would have gone after her to try to find her and see if there was anything that they could do to bring her back. Because in their minds, also just keep in mind, in their minds, the community is the safety net. To them, they feel like if she's going out to this, there's danger lurking out there. And to them, the best way they know how to keep her safe is to bring her back.
So if you just tuned in, we're having a special session here, Rabbi and Rebbitzin Chana Vigler. I'm Rabbi David Vigler. We're talking about Unorthodox, reflections on the documentary or the film,
Miniseries.
the mini-series on Netflix, Myths and Misconceptions of Observant Jewish Life as Portrayed on the Big Screen. We are taking questions live here on YouTube, on Facebook, and that's facebook.com/Jewish Gardens and youtube.com/Jewish Gardens, where we'd love to hear your thoughts and comments and feedback and questions. There's so many questions we've got to go through. We're running out of time. We got to keep it moving.
And I better get moving.
Let me ask you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You wanted to get to something?
Yes, I want to get to that. Is there something you wanted to say?
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to ask you the question.
Right. Okay. Yes. So go ahead.
So what about the fact that this guy is 23 years old or something, and he's incapable of thinking for himself? I mean, what's that all about? That he needs his mother, his father, his Rebbe to tell him where to go, what to do.
Yeah. I just think that's completely
pathetic.
That's pathetic. That's not real life. That's not how it is. That's ridiculous. Just in short, these people, I mean, to say that they don't think ask the rabbi before they do each move, and this guy was so what's the word, like so non-human, really. He just that I just think that's totally off.
Yeah.
But I want to move to some more, just get into the deeper stuff.
Juice.
Yes, let's get into it.
Okay.
I know. Okay, so first of all, why did they have to shave her head on her wedding night? Are the husbands allowed to see their real hair?
So what's up with women's hair, married women's hair, right?
Okay, so for starters, in terms of a woman's hair, so a woman's hair is sacred. A woman's hair represents her beauty. According to Kabbalah, a woman covers her hair because just like the rest of her body is completely sacred and saved just for her husband, her hair, which is the symbol of her beauty, is also just for her husband. And this is why we cover our hair. So I personally do not have that custom of shaving my head, so I cannot relate to that or speak to that. But what I can tell you is, in speaking to people from this community, is that I know that although the majority of them do this, they do shave their heads, it is not something that is mandatory, and that if somebody absolutely didn't want to, or if her husband didn't want her to, it's actually, from what I've heard, it's something that people don't really discuss. Nobody knows who actually does and who actually doesn't. So it's not like, because we cover our hair anyway, so nobody actually knows what's going on underneath. So you don't know. There are definitely people that don't want to, or like I said, their husbands don't want them to. And so they don't, and nobody knows. And that's that. But it's definitely not this emotional scene the way they depicted it. It's something that's done. The girl does it on her own in the privacy of her own home. She decides how much she wants to cut it.
Very painful for her.
Yeah, they
in the
depicted it as this whole, and she was crying, and they were forcing her to do something that she didn't want to do. From what I hear, again, I can't speak from my own personal experience because that is not my experience, but from what I hear, that is not the case with most of these girls. If they don't want to cut it that much, they don't. They cut it as much as they want, and if they want to.
Trying to give you a little context.
Also, to a lot of these girls, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. A lot of these girls, you have to understand that to a lot of them, they know that when they get married, this is what's coming. And to them, it's almost like a rite of passage. It's not like something that's thrown on them at the last minute. Now they got married, and now you have to shave your hair off. It's not like that. So they know it's coming. They're ready for it. Like I said, if they're not ready for it, then they can choose not to. But again, it's really a rite of passage for them, where this is what married women do.
So I just want to add one more thing up here, and to understand that the Satmar community, this very tightly knit community, is very much steeped in the past. They are very, very, you see in their very conservative dress, that's exactly the way that they dressed back there in Satmaru in Romania or Hungary or Transylvania, exactly where that was, I don't know. But the thing about them is that they were decimated in the Holocaust. So because of that, there's a strong emphasis on having children in order to make up for the people that they've lost. That's a strong undercurrent in that community. But another thing I want to tell you about the origins of the shaving of the hair, which also dates way back when, is that back then there was actually a terrible time when the Gentiles, I guess the barons or the lords, would grab the girls and they would violate them. They would catch them by their hair, I guess. I'm not sure exactly how that worked. So what they did was that they decided amongst themselves a long time ago that they would shave off the hair entirely. And that way, that was kind of how they would protect themselves somehow from the Gentiles who, God forbid, want to hurt and abuse them. So somehow that kind of stuck. But like you said, Hannah, it wasn't something that stuck as mandatory, but for those that want to adopt that particular stringency.
Okay, I want to move on to something that I know disturbed us for sure, and I'm sure so many of you, is the scenes of the wedding night and
Courtship.
the year. Well, I'm actually past the courtship, but we can go back there if you want.
No, you go where you want. You keep on going.
We can go back there. So
No, keep
should
on
we go in
going.
chronological order?
No, you go, hon. Get to the heart of it.
Okay, so I actually want to read it straight out from, and just because I'm seeing this again, if a husband's ever allowed to see her real hair, of course, the husband's allowed to see everything. It's all for him. Okay, where are we? Okay, there we go. Yes. Okay, I know this is what you're waiting for. So, why do Orthodox married couples have sex with their clothes on and the lights off? It's as if they're doing something shameful or secretive. Okay, so number one, according to Jewish law, you are actually not allowed to have your clothing on. It's actually meant to be something special, skin on skin. It's meant to be, you're meant to become one flesh. And that is actually the entire mitzvah, the entire sanctity of marriage, is that you become one flesh. And so the way that they depict it with their clothing on is flat out, outright, just made up, completely made up, because that it is actually against Torah law to have sex with your clothing on. So that's for starters. A very important thing that I think we should mention at this point as well is that in the marriage document, in the Jewish marriage document called the Ketubah, there are, it is essentially a prenuptial, really, for the woman. Everything on that document is to protect women's rights. The Jewish culture has been protecting Jewish rights from way before. Women's rights. They've been protecting women's rights from way before women's rights were a thing. How old is this document? A few thousand years old. This document says everything that a husband needs to do for his wife. Nothing about what a wife has to do for her husband. And in it, it specifically describes that he needs to give her gifts or whatever she needs, and he needs to please her in the bedroom. It says nothing about a woman pleasing her husband, rather about a husband pleasing his wife.
Can I just interject here a moment? Because in the way that the question was asked was by Gail. She says, why is sex just intercourse in the movie? It looked as exciting as using a hammer to knock a nail into the wall. Is sex merely a means to an end, the production of more and more offspring? Where is the showing of love and compassion towards each other? Isn't sex supposed to be about a couple expressing their love for each other? The movie did none of that. Why on earth would anyone want to do with orthodoxy after watching those sex scenes is beyond me. So to your point, Hannah, I want to say, that the obligation of a man to his wife in the ketubah is to give her time and attention in the sexual context, which means he's supposed to make her feel good. It's not about just doing a deed like a nail and a hammer, as you described, right? And just getting the deed done with. It's about the love. It's about the foreplay. That is absolutely part and parcel here with the mitzvah to the point, to the extent that if a husband decides to deny his wife the foreplay, then she's allowed to demand a divorce after merely 1 week of his behaving that way. So it's absolutely outrageous. Completely, it's shameful to see that they would have depicted. It's almost like they went to great lengths to depict this Orthodox Jewish community as the most backward, archaic, out of touch with any humanity, with any human emotion.
Purposes, he was raping her. I mean, that's what it looked like anyway. It was like
the only time you saw any humanity within him was at the very, very end, the last scene of the movie, when he decided to do something for her. He cut off his side locks, right?
And
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That was him that's when he was being human. Only when he's leaving his tradition behind, all of a sudden, then he has this
because she suddenly educated
personality. Him. Right? But yeah, another thing I wanted to say is that although yes, we definitely have I would say an obsession over having children, but to me, it's more about the priorities of having children, as opposed to saying, as soon as I get all my ducks in a row, as soon as I,
my job, my finances,
whatever, I'll have children. To us, yes, definitely. We see having children as the ultimate of blessings. There is no blessing greater than having children. Having said that, does that mean that you should keep having more and more and more if you don't have the mental capacity or the whatever other capacity? Absolutely not. Is birth control used in the observant community? Absolutely, without question. It is used. So I like to say, when you see families with large children, when you see large families with many children, these children were wanted. They are loved. They were not accidents, and they were not forced upon their parents either. Their parents had them because they wanted to have them. And just to add to that is that you don't want a child being born from being forced to, the way they depicted it in the movie. Like, we have to make a baby. That's
pressure.
You want a baby to be born from love, not from pressure.
Can I tell you what the Kabbalah says about that one?
Yes.
Just a little.
Do you want to hear what the Kabbalah has to say about that?
So the Kabbalah writes that the wisdom of a child is directly proportionate to the degree and the depth of love that was present between mother and father at the moments of conception. So to have a loveless, mechanical sex the way that they did it in the movie is actually all wrong. Nobody does it like that. Rather, it's when it's deep and profound emotion and love and intimacy and unity. That is what we're striving for, to be able to endow our child with that kind of a foundation.
Yeah, and I think it's appropriate to actually include here the most famous misconception about Jews and sex, with the hole in the sheet, right? The hole in the sheet. Everyone wants to know about the hole in the sheet. So the most accurate explanation that I've come across about the hole in the sheet is that years ago, when the women were hanging their laundry out to dry, in the shtetl, and everybody saw everybody's clean and dirty laundry, the women would hang the tzitzis. You know what the men wear under their shirts? It's the tzitzis. It's basically a big, long,
four-cornered garment,
white rectangular garment that only has a hole in the center because it goes over the head, right? So it goes the front and the back, and there's a hole in the center.
And it's got tassels on the edge.
It's got some tassels. It has a couple strings on it, but it's mostly white with a hole in the center.
Looks like a sheet.
And I could just imagine that when the Jewish neighbors were hanging the tzitzit up to dry in the, out in the lawn, and their neighbors saw that, they had no clue what it was and said, "Oh." And
That looks like a sheet with a hole inside.
And voila, the myth was born. The story was born. But there's absolutely no truth to that. So let's put an end to that.
Separating
right
the facts from the fiction, right? And the Baba Mises from the bottom line.
Yes.
Ready to move on?
There was something else.
If you have any questions coming in on Facebook and YouTube, please, to our listeners on Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah, I want to actually just address, just go back to that
YouTube
comment right there on YouTube. Yankee was very ignorant in regards to sex. Are Orthodox men briefed or educated on the subject?
So was she, by the way, in the movie. She had no clue what was going on over there in her wedding planning
so
process.
I'll tell you what. There are definitely pre-marriage classes. The extent of them, I'm not sure. Every teacher is a little bit different. Is there a sex education like they have in public school? I actually don't even know what they teach in that class in public school. Probably not. But I think like most other people in society, it's on-the-job training. I think that, most people just learn from experience.
But you want to make sure your kids don't get it from the wrong sources.
Right. So, we've had some talks with our kids just to explain to them how things work, how babies are made and all that. But beyond that, I think it's the kind of thing that you really need to kind of figure out for yourself. So,
but the degree of ignorance that they exhibited in the movie was totally unrealistic.
Yeah, and let me tell you, if somebody was having such a struggle like she was, like Esty was, for a full year, I find it really hard to believe that she didn't speak to anybody about it. She didn't speak to her friends. She didn't speak to
I don't think she had a single friend in the movie.
Yeah, she had no friends. She had no, I mean, how is that possible? She had to have friends. She had to have somebody that she could confide in. She had to, and if she didn't, then there you go. Then this girl had some serious issues. She had literally not a girl that she can talk to. So that's just silly. Okay.
Next question. You ready? This one?
Yeah, I think we already did that about shaving their heads.
Singing?
Okay. Why can't a woman... Oh, you wanted to read it?
Yeah, I'll read it. Okay. So, why can't women sing in front of men? Doesn't Tanya teach us to control our temptations? If God gave a woman a beautiful voice, isn't she disrespecting God by not using that gift? Are men that uncontrollable that they can't listen to a woman's voice and keep their pants on? How crazy controlling can orthodoxy get? Wow.
Okay, so first thing, the fact that she was not allowed to learn music, play piano, have singing lessons, that's
ridiculous.
Really. I've never heard of such a thing, that a girl shouldn't be able to take music lessons or learn to sing. I mean, I don't even know where that came from. And that we know actually was the movie brought that up. It was not from her real life. That was something that was their artistic license that they used. So this was definitely not coming from her real life. So that is just completely off, the fact that she couldn't learn a music. In terms of singing, a woman is definitely allowed to sing. However, like her hair and like her body, a voice is an expression of the soul. When somebody sings, it expresses the most deepest sense of their soul. And for that reason, women do not sing in front of men, because it's just not, we don't want to be bearing our souls like we bear the rest of ourselves for men. They can sing in front of women, absolutely, but it is reserved for women. And mostly because, not because men can't keep their pants on, but because it is holy and it is sacred, and we don't want it to be violated or misused, as it can very easily get. So how crazy controlling can orthodoxy get? I wouldn't call it controlling. To me, and I don't like to use the word orthodoxy either, it's really Jewish customs. Jewish observance are guides. They are meant as boundaries. They're meant as to help us, with a moral compass. Who are we going to rely on for a moral compass? The government, our neighbors, society. We provide the compass to them. Morality in the world was learnt from the Torah. That's where they got their list of morality, which is actually pretty appropriate coming up to Shavuos, where we received the Torah, and the 10 Commandments which have very much been adopted in various ways by society. But morality comes from Judaism. So Judaism is not meant to be holding you back. It's not meant to be controlling you. It's like telling me or saying, I teach my kids to brush their teeth because I don't want them to get cavities. Am I controlling them by saying you must brush your teeth twice a day when you wake up and when you go to sleep because we've had way more cavities than we want to know about? Is that controlling by teaching them proper hygiene? Is it controlling by teaching my children to eat with a knife and a fork? Am I controlling them? I don't think so. I don't think I'm controlling them. I think that I'm giving them tools to live a productive life. That's what I think. And the same way I feel with the Judaic values I give to my children. They are tools they will use to live a productive life as opposed to a box that I'm putting them into. And that also really answers that question as to, why do you have to impose this on your children when they're young? Why don't you let them just grow up and choose what they want? What do you mean let them choose? Should I just teach them to eat with their hands and when they're 22 years old, they'll decide if they should choose to eat with a fork and a knife? Or am I going to teach them the parameters? Am I going to teach them the proper way to live and to lead, in my opinion, the most productive, best life? Of course, I'm going to give them the best tools I possibly can.
So, if you just tuned in, you're listening to the Sunday Shmooze with the Rabbi and the Rebbitzin Chana Vigler. I'm Rabbi David Vigler, and we together are doing the review on Unorthodox, on the miniseries on Netflix, which portrayed the observant Jewish community as backward, as narrow-minded, as totally void of any vibrancy and anything attractive. It could have been black and white. Until the scene when she moved off into Berlin, when everything comes into color, and we're actually going to start wrapping up with some final questions over here. I just want to talk about how important is having kids in that culture. Why is it that they that they put such an emphasis on having children as if it was an insult to her? Do you know what I mean? That they were baby making machines. One of these questions that we got here, they viewed women as baby making machines. Do you have any comments on that?
In general, they spoke very, very uncomplimentary to her. I think that to say, and I think I addressed that a little bit earlier, is that to call her a baby making machine, obviously that's just because
they only cared about it for a kid.
Well, that's what they wanted you to think. And that's just falling into those stereotypical traps of what's known as that we're just baby making machines. Clearly, that's not the case. And as I said earlier, is that we just have a different set of priorities. That to us, children are on the top of our list. Children are the most precious possessions we can ever have. And before we even try to make money or aspire for any other thing, to us, whereas society, top of the list might be become a millionaire, a billionaire, I don't even know where it is anymore, live in a nice house, drive nice cars, and then somewhere along the line is have a few children, have family. To us, priority number one is to have children. And as I've often said, even living
and that's not demeaning. It doesn't take away your freedom.
On the contrary, to me, my children are my jewels. They're my gems. Everything I do in my life is for them. What would be the use of everything that I do if I didn't have them? And as I've often said, especially living here in Palm Beach and speaking to people where I've often thought I'd be judged for the amount of children that we have, I've only seen the contrary. And I've only heard from people who've said to me, I wish we had more. I've never heard from somebody that said, it was a mistake, I had too many children, but I've definitely heard from so many people that they wish they had more. This emphasis on her being a baby-making machine is just, again, like I said, it's just to feed you into that stereotypical trap, barefoot and pregnant, which is...
Because Han, when you're going to be, when any of us is facing our mortality, and you're going to ask yourself, what do I most value in my whole life? And I've spent time with people on their deathbed asking them this question. They've always said to me the same thing. I cherish more than anything else is my family, specifically my children. Why do they make it like your kids is some sort of like a mitigating factor on life when after all is said and done, nobody has ever said to me, I wish I spent more time in the office.
Right.
Oh, I wish I closed that other deal. I wish I would have made more money. Nobody ever said that on their deathbed. They said, I'm just grateful for the time I spent with my kids, and I wish I would have spent more time with my kids, just to give you a flip.
And I want to add on that, one part that really, really hurt me so much, and I would say probably the most from the entire miniseries, what hurt me the most is when, I don't remember who it was her aunt or it was her grandma, I don't remember who it was, or the mother-in-law, I think it was, that said, because your husband is a king. And she said, oh, so if he's the king, then I am. And she just walked away, like as if, no, trash, you're dirt. What? Are you kidding me? We say in Eishes Chayil, the Women of Valor, we say every single Friday night, our husbands sing to us. Eishes Chayil, a woman of valor. Who is a woman of valor? What is she? Ateret Ba'ala. She is the crown of her husband. And Chassidus actually explains that a crown, where does the crown sit? Above. So the crown is actually higher than him. She's on a pedestal above him. So to say he's the king, but she's nothing, this just comes from utter ignorance, comes from knowing nothing about, obviously they used people that knew a lot about the Jewish community because a lot of it is real. The wedding scene, under the chuppah, a lot of it is very, very real. Somebody asked actually if the bride's face is covered throughout the entire wedding. No, only during the chuppah, the bride's face is covered, symbolizing that the groom is marrying her not merely for her outer beauty, but for the inner beauty, and for what is going to be coming in the years ahead. There is the characteristics that we know. They're the characteristics that we're going to find out about, like many of us found out about during this quarantine life. Things that we maybe don't like so much, and maybe things that we were very surprised and happy to find.
It's an unconditional commitment to every part of our spouse.
And that's what the veil symbolizes. But absolutely not. For the rest of the wedding, her face is definitely shown the entire time.
We're almost done in time, Khan. So I just want to wrap up with a couple closing comments.
Sure.
In this film, they tried very hard to portray the Satmar community, the Orthodox Jewish community, as a cult. It was certainly an attempted undercurrent. They try to portray them as mindless. They don't think for themselves. They have other people thinking for them, controlling, and you have to give them your money, I guess. That's like what a cult is. There's like this communal state of existence. Everybody eats together and everybody, makes decisions together. When in reality, it's the furthest thing from the truth. Because these people are not mindless. If you walk down the streets of Manhattan, you'll see the diamond dealers and you'll see very, very capable people coming out of the Satmar community. I know when I need a passport and I need it fast, I call the Satmar people in Williamsburg because they've got connections like nobody's got connections. And it's always a young woman who answers the phone and she deals with me, who's very courteous, very respectful. And boy, do they know how to get things done. They take no hostages. So these guys are very, very, very capable. And certainly not like it was pathetically portrayed in the film. Internet, where is Esti? Like totally pathetic, right? So that's number one. It's certainly not a cult, especially when you think about Chabad. The word Chabad, which means logic, wisdom, understanding, and realization, it's a rational attack on faith. Chabad is all about understanding what we were told to believe in. That is the exact opposite of a cult. But unfortunately, on the big screen, that's how they're trying to portray it.
That's what sells.
That's what sells, and that's what sticks. So here we are. We're coming Monday morning quarterback here with trying to give a response to this film. But I just find it embarrassing that Jews would want to throw their own people under the bus in order to make a buck. I find it very painful that Jewish people would need to do that, to throw their own family members, to the dogs like that. When you share this movie, like I told one of our friends who's listening here, when you share this movie with your friends, right, with your non-Jewish friends, and you try to show them, about the ridiculous Orthodox Jews, they don't know the difference between the size of your kippah. They can't tell the difference whether your membership is to Reform, Conservative, Orthodox, Chabad, Satmar. It makes no difference. Hitler couldn't care less. A Jew is a Jew is a Jew, according to Hitler. One of your four great-grandparents, I think it was enough to make you a Jew, according to Hitler. And that's how the anti-Semites will see us. When we are portrayed in a negative light, it's all of us that's portrayed in a negative light. And when we're portrayed in a positive light, it's all of us that are portrayed as such. Let us not cut off our nose in order to spite our face. Let's stand united together with our fellow Jews. Let's try to find the positivity within each other instead of trying to find what divides us and what separates us.
Well
Closing
said.
comment, Hannah?
Closing comment. We need a little bit
My
more
closing comment is like this, is
clarification.
that leaving the community was very painful in the Satmar community because they are very closely knit. They are very tightly knit together, and it's very, very painful for them to lose one of their own. They're very insulated. I can tell you, in our communities of Chabad, when someone leaves our community, they always stay connected because members of our community are not religious, and members of our family might not be religious. We accept and embrace them with love. We respect them not for what they do, but for who they are. We hope that you can do the same for us. To respect the Orthodox, the Satmar, the Hasidic, the Haredi, not for what they do, but because of who they are. We are your brothers, we are your sisters. And even though we might not always agree on all the issues, we hope that at least all of us can have the maturity and the higher consciousness to accept each other for who we are, and not to fall victim to the prejudice that we fight so hard to remove from being judged.
I want to add to that is that often the observant community is accused of being closed-minded. We are closed-minded because we're not open to everybody else's
But
ideas.
they do the same to us.
But meanwhile, they are closed-minded to observant Judaism. Exhibit A, unorthodox. So I say, do not recommend this film to your friends. Recommend Chabad to your friends. Tell them if you want to see what Judaism is, go to Chabad.
And share this video with them, please, on Facebook and on YouTube. If you could like the video, subscribe to the video, share the video. We thank you for joining us here this morning on Facebook.com/Jewish Gardens, on YouTube.com/Jewish Gardens. We'll be right back next week with more Rabbi and Rebbitzin AMA, Ask Me Anything, coming up next week. Shalom, and have a wonderful week. Take care. To our YouTubers, we want to thank you for joining the conversation, as well as to our Facebook friends. Key, thank you. What I love about Chabad is the openness to come and learn and the welcomeness. Thank you. Very interesting discussion, Stacy. Appreciate that. Do we think the writers of the series use tropes to form their specific narrative? Arlene, absolutely.
Without question.
Okay, we addressed Stacy's question. Lois's question. She claims rights color. Yeah.
It's very possible, Lois.
Yeah, no, Lois says Feldman claims that that the writers colored the situation. She was unaware of what she was signing. This came out in an interview on YouTube. That makes a lot of sense.
It makes sense.
Makes
I wouldn't
good
be
sense.
surprised.
How could the grandmother hang up on her when she called in distress? You know, Bob, when I saw that part, I was like, I'm done. I don't need to watch this movie anymore because it was total fiction.
I thought, because unless I misunderstood, but I thought I had seen in a previous scene that the grandmother was like had some dementia. She didn't really know what was going on.
I think it was deliberate, and the scene was deliberate. They tried to portray us inhuman.
I was a little confused myself in that scene. That was very confusing. Here they're searching for her. She gets a call. I mean, then the grandma would say, "Where are you?"
And she's in tears. She's crying, bitter tears.
That's just trying to portray the absorbent community as inhumane.
I mean, frankly, I was surprised that there wasn't a scene in there where some guy comes out with horns on his head. You know, because it was that pathetic in how they were being so militant in portraying the Satmar community as just downright evil. Ezra, I'm glad you're there. Thank you very much for your comments. Let's switch over to Facebook quickly. Gail, okay, Ari Raz, excellent. Thank you. Hannah Siegelstein, well done. Thank you, Hannah. Really appreciate that. Dean, excellent. Thank you. Helen got about 12 clapping hands. Thank you. Thank you again for all your wisdom and intelligence. Yes, Hannah, people are very narrow-minded. Well said. Incredibly well done, Rabbi and Rebbitzin. Thank you, Alyssa. Graciela, love your closing remarks, Rabbi. Always warm and welcoming. Zeldi from Coronado, California. Thank you, cousin. Susan Benson, amen. That is a wonderful thing about Chabad. You are right, and it is sad. Whew. Fast and furious, the comments coming in. Do you know what happened to her and her baby? And she had the baby? She did have a baby.
Yeah, she did have a baby. She actually had a baby boy. She
Yitzi.
Yeah, she actually promised that she was going to raise him
Modern Orthodox.
with Shabbos and kosher, modern Orthodox.
But she didn't.
However, she took him to Berlin, and he is not keeping Shabbos or kosher. And he is now 14 or 15 years old.
Thank you for a very interesting review. Well, we have to sign off, and we want to thank everybody.
Thank you for joining us.
It was anti-Semitic. Lois, I think it was anti-Semitic.
I agree. I wasn't expecting that, but I did think so.
Yeah, definitely not recommended viewing, but we're hearing so many questions about it. We figured we had to do a show about this.
Them.
And in fact, Khan and I both want to do AMA. Ask Me Anything.
Yeah.
Inspired
We'd love
by
to
Gail.
do this as a weekly thing.
And someone else also asked us for AMA. I think it was Michael Stone.
We'll send you out. We'll send you the topic in advance so that you can send us.
Or maybe you
questions.
send us the topic. How about you send us questions, and
Let us
we'll see if we can put together a program based on your questions.
That'd be great.
It would be a nice format for us to develop. Well, thank you very, very much, everybody. Thank you for joining us here on YouTube. Lois likes the AMA. Lois from
good.
Rancho Mirage, right? California?
Right. I think so, right, Lois? I think you're in Rancho Mirage, right near there.
Fantastic. So
Maybe
stay
your
tuned
son
for, it's normally on Thursdays at 2:30. That's when we typically do the radio show, but tomorrow's Yontif, tomorrow night. So we moved it over to Wednesday. But stay tuned. Lots of good things coming up. Oh, and don't forget, Khan and I both are doing Chabad.org.
Oh, Winnipeg.
We're doing a Chabad.org presentation on misconceptions, on debunking the misconceptions of observant marriage. Is that it?
I think it's Observant Judaism.
Of observant Judaism. We're going to be talking about that on Chabad.org on Monday night at 8 p.m. Stay tuned for more information. And we're looking forward to that. So thank you very, very much. I don't know if I need to go because you could do all the talking.
We're a good team.
Such a good job. Wow. Great. Awesome. Anyways, thank you very, very much, everybody. We greatly appreciate your time and your feedback, your comments. Please share the video on Facebook and on YouTube. Like it. We really appreciate your support. Thank you so much, everybody. Shalom and Chag Sameach.